stay a while and listen.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Undefined, and I'm coming back to you live again with another build. So this build is for Demon Hunter, and as you can see by the title, it's the grenade build. So I've been tinkering around with a lot of different setups for it. I've even tried like Unhallowed grenade, tried a couple different like weapon variations using Dawn and Fortress Ballista. I even tried just doing like a primary grenade build instead of using like cluster arrow. But I gotta say, after a lot of testing and experimenting, cluster arrow might be the way to go. Although with Unhallowed you can use primary grenade and it's still pretty good. I could do like GR 80 to 85 pretty quick with the Hallowed grenade build, and the toughness on it's actually pretty decent. So basically with Marauder grenade, this will probably be like the main build for most people. I feel like most people are comfortable with Marauders when it comes to doing a grenade setup compared to Unhallowed. So we'll focus on the Marauder build as well as the GR pushing variant. I won't really, for this build I'm probably not going to do a speed farming variation, just strictly GR, because the grenade build itself, like in itself, is just kind of slow, and I don't feel like it's the best for speed farming. You definitely could modify it and tweak it to make it into a speed farming variation, but I feel like the GR pushing variation is probably just the better way to go with Marauder grenades. So let's start with the set pieces. So, Embodiment of the Marauder, 2-piece set. Companion calls all companions to your side. Okay, it's not bad. This will synergize well with another item. I'll show you in just a sec. 4-piece. Sentries deal 400% increased damage and cast Elemental Arrow, Chakram, Impale, Multi-Shot, and Cluster Arrow when you do. So we can have like a lot of sentries on the ground, and when we cast our Cluster Arrow, we're gonna have a lot of Cluster Arrows just cluster bombing the entire screen. A 6-piece, your primary skills: Elemental Arrow, Chakram, Impale, Multi-Shot, Cluster Arrow, Companions, and Vengeance deal 12,000% increased damage for each active sentry, for every active sentry. So that's some crazy damage, and we gotta make sure we can make the most of this 6-piece bonus by getting as many sentries out on the ground as possible. So let's quickly go over stats for armor. Helmet, you probably want Dex, cluster arrow damage, crit chance. I don't know why I just derped out there for a minute. Chest armor, Dex, Vit, all res, and try to like get secondary all reses wherever you can. And if you can even get it, the increased gold health pickup, that's a bonus too. Shoulders, you want Dex, Vit, all res cooldown. The resource cost isn't probably necessary. That's probably fine. Gloves, you can do like Dex, Vit, crit, Dex, all res, crit, or Dex cooldown, crit. It really just depends on the kind of stats you're looking for. I personally want more cooldown on my build, so I want cooldown on my gloves and my shoulders. Pants, Dex, Vit, and so this is one thing I'm not too sure about. If someone in the comments wants to correct me on this, but I don't know if grenade damage actually increases the grenade damage from the cluster arrow, because I'm using cluster bombs. So I lob a huge bomb, and as it's flying, it drops a bunch of little grenades on its way. And I don't know if the increase in grenade damage actually increases those little grenades damage, or if it's just when you use the primary like generator grenades. So if someone wants to correct me on that, please do so in the comments. But yeah, so Dex, Vic, grenade, and if the grenade damage doesn't actually do anything, it's just for the primary skill, then go like Dex, Vit, all res, or Dex, Vit, armor, you know. For boots, we got Dex, Vit, All Res, and with the boots, similar to the helmet, you can get cluster arrow damage. So the safer bet's probably to go cluster arrow, because I feel like the grenade damage is probably attached to the cluster arrow damage. So getting cluster arrow on your boots, your helmet, and your quiver is probably the way you want to go. But yes, so that covers the set pieces. Now let's move on to legendaries. So for the main weapon, we have Manticore. This is an important part of the build as it cuts the hatred cost of cluster out in half, which is really nice because cluster out has a pretty pricey hatred cost. It's 40. So by doing this, it's like less than multi-shot, which is 25, I think. So that's a pretty good hatred cost reduction. And then on top of that, increases its damage by up to 300%, which is sweet. Quiver, we're gonna run Bombardier's Rucksack. This is also very important for the build as it gives you 2 additional sentries. And remember, the 6-piece bonus from Marauders gives you 12,000% more damage for each active sentry. So that's another like 24,000% damage from just having this quiver. And the stats you want on this, probably something like Dex, Vit, attack speed, crit chance. I don't know about the hatred regen, you might want to get... This is the thing, because like I think it always rolls the hatred regen and then sentry damage. So it kind of depends if you want to roll off the sentry damage for more cluster arrow damage, because the main damage is coming from cluster arrow, not so much the sentries. But if you can even get cooldown on this, that'd be pretty sweet too. Like if, say, the attack speed or the crit chance rolled the cooldown. You know, that's one way to go, but you really just want to get around 37-38% cooldown, so you can have 100% uptime on your Vengeance. So yeah. Oh yeah, and the stats for your weapon, you probably want like Dex, damage, life per hit, cooldown, whatever you gotta do to hit that 37% cooldown threshold. And after that, you're probably fine. Then you just focus into like toughness and damage stats. So rings. Convention of Elements. Really good ring. I was lucky enough to find a primal, and with like crazy damage stats, I got the crit damage. Or no, it was like crit damage, and then I think it was cooldown or something, but I really wanted the crit hit damage, so I rolled off the cooldown. And then, so the Convention of Elements, it cycles through the elements available to your class, and when that element is active, you gain up to 3 times damage with that element, and the window is only 4 seconds. So with the Demon Hunter, they only have 4 elements, I believe. They have physical, cold, fire, lightning. So basically 25% of the time you have triple damage on whatever like main ability you're using in the Rift. So you have triple damage 25% of the time, which is pretty sweet. Elusive Ring. This ring is important for toughness. The Marauders build compared to the Unhallowed Essence build, I find really lax in toughness. I find when you go like Unhallowed multi-shot, you're a lot tougher, especially when you like do the hybrid build with Captain Crimson's. Like, I can get up to like 700, 800 million toughness, like easy with that build. And with this build, I'm like just barely getting to around 200, 300 million toughness when I have like everything up. So the Elusive Ring is pretty mandatory for this build, I'd say. Anytime you cast Shadow Power, Smoke Screen, or Vault, you take up to 60% reduced damage for 8 seconds. So this is like a nice little toughness boost. Or a big toughness boost, I should say. Stats you want on the rings, probably again like crit cooldown, crit damage, stuff like that. Even crit attack speed wouldn't be that bad. For belt, Zoe's Secret, super important for more toughness. You take 9%, you take up to 9% less damage for every companion you have active. Because we're running Marauders, we get all companions called to our side. When we have companion on. I chose wolf companion, but I don't think it matters because like it's gonna activate all the companions anyway. But yeah. So stats, dex, vit, all res, and this as well can roll grenade damage like the pants, but I don't know if that actually does anything to the grenades. So again, if someone wants to clarify that, please feel free. Nemesis bracers. These are good for making the rift go a bit faster, because anytime you click on a shrine or a pylon, it's going to spawn an elite. Just gives you that nice little extra couple seconds to get rift done and over with faster. So because our cluster arrow is a fire rune, we want to get fire skills. That's like super important to get fire skills damage, because it's going to ramp up our damage a lot. We want dex, vit, crit chance, and a secondary res would be nice. Amulet. I decided to go with the squirts with the Molten Wildebeest Gizzard, because the squirts gives you up to 2 times damage as long as you're not taking damage, and the Molten Wildebeest Gizzard provides a nice, pretty hefty big shield. I'd say like it's almost 300,000 shield, but it's because I have it like really high. The gem's really high level though, obviously, but still it's like a pretty good gem. It couples well with the squirts. And the squirts I found isn't too bad either. It's fire skills, crit, so can't go wrong there. And damage you get off, it's pretty sweet. So yeah, I think that's it for the gear. I'm also running Zeiss and Bane for more damage, but I feel like I might have to, if I really want to like start pushing higher GRs, I might need to swap out probably Bane, I want to say, for Stricken, because the Zeiss ultimately gives you more damage. It's just, you gotta be at like, the corner of the screen. You just gotta stay far away from people, basically, with this build. Because you don't have like that much toughness, you have to keep your distance from people. So, in the cube, we have Dawn. So because we've reached that 37% cooldown threshold, Dawn will keep 100% uptime on our Vengeance. We'll demonstrate that now. For armor, Hellcat Waistguard grenades have a chance to bounce 3 to 5 times, but cube you get 5 times. Deals an additional 50% damage on each bounce, and then the bonus is increased to 89% on the final bounce, so gives you grenades crazy damage. And there. Went off cooldown right before it ran out, so we can just keep casting and recasting it, and the Vengeance will just permanently stay up. So that's great. For the ring power in our cube, we have Unity. Because we're running 6-piece Marauders, and we're not like doing the hybrid Captain Crimson set, we don't need Ring of Grandeur. And we already have Convention equipped, so I just decided to go with Unity to just ensure even more toughness. And I made sure to put a Unity on my follower as well, and the invulnerability token, so all damage will be split to him, and he won't die as a result. Potion, I like running the armor potion. I don't know why. It's personal preference, really. There's even like a all-res potion. I think it's the diamond one, but it's really up to you. Diamond or tower potions, they're both really good. Alright, so on my left click I have Evasive Fire Focus. Probably better to go with Hardened, honestly, just for that extra armor. But I like the Hatred Regen, because I find that the Cluster Arrow does eat up a bit of Hatred, so I like to have a bit more Hatred Regen. Cluster Arrow, Cluster Bombs. So we launch a cluster through the air, and it drops grenades in a straight line that each explode for 650% weapon damage as fire, which is way more damage than the primary grenades. Like primary grenades only go to like 160%, and then there's another rune that like makes them go to 200% or something. So this is like way more damage, and if the increased grenade damage actually affects this, that's crazy. That's like a lot of damage. So Vengeance, I was really struggling with the hatred management. Like, without Seethe, you just eat through your hatred so fast, because at first I was running Dark Heart, for even more toughness. Like, I'm just trying to get as much toughness as I can, okay? I'm trying to survive out here. But, the hatred, it was just draining, and it was so hard to keep it up. So I just decided to go with Seethe, and then just play a bit safer. So, the Seethe definitely helps with your hatred, but then you just gotta play a bit safer, because you're missing like 50% damage reduction, which is kind of big. It's like doubling your toughness on whatever it is already. Vault, Tumble. This one's a staple in most builds. It's like your mobility skill. So it's like mobility, but also triggers our elusive ring. So you need to vault every at least 8 seconds to keep up your damage reduction. But it's nice too because it's a mobility skill, so you want to optimize that. Try to use it when you need to be going somewhere, and also like proc your elusive ring. Sentry. We need Sentry to take advantage of the 6-piece bonus set as much as possible. I went Polar Station because when you put the Sentry down, it has a 16-yard radius around it that chills enemies. And basically what this will do is it'll proc Call the Weak, increase damage against slowed or chilled enemies by 20%, as well as Bane of the Trapped. It increases damage against enemies under the effects of control and pairing effects. So any enemies that are in this chilled radius, you get like a ton of damage against them, like a lot of extra damage. Finally, we have Companion. You have to have Companion on your skill tree, your skill tab, to gain the 2-piece bonus, which is Companion calls all companions to your side. If you don't even have Companion on your skill tab, you're not going to get all the companions. It honestly doesn't matter which rune you choose, because you're going to have all the companions, so when you hit the Companion key, it's going to activate all their active abilities. So, that's it for the skills. Passives, we already saw Call the Weak. Custom Engineering. It doubles the duration of your sentries. You're marked for deaths and your spike traps, but sentries are the important part here. And it increases the maximum number of charges of sentries to 3. Spike traps, that doesn't matter. We just want the sentries. Grenadier. Increase the damage of grenades by 10%. Increase the explosion size of grenades by 20%. But that's really nice. And this part doesn't help us too much, but when you die you drop a huge grenade. It does a lot of damage. Steady aim. As long as there are no enemies within 10 yards, all your damage is increased by 20%. This isn't too hard to do. A 10-yard radius is fairly small. It's like when the enemies are basically up in your face. You'll lose this bonus, so that's fine though, because the whole point of this is to stay safe, stay away from the enemies, keep your distance, and lob grenades at them from a fair ways away. So we'll be making the most of steady aim, Zais, and we'll be making sure we're not getting murdered, basically, because we don't have the toughness to really be tanking too many hits. But, like, this build does some pretty good damage. Like, it definitely can blow up some GR90 elites, probably even GR100. I haven't tested it on 100, but I've run a few 90s, and it can handle 90 pretty well. So, I think that's it. We covered the gear, covered the passives, the skills. Ah yes, the Paragon. That's last. Okay. So for utility, I'd go resource, life, area damage, gold find, defense, all res, life, armor, life regen, offense, go cooldown, attack speed, crit damage, crit chance, and then with core, max out your hatred and movement speed first, and then just allocate the rest to Vit if you need more health, and then like get your health up first, I'd say, and then put the rest into Dex to start getting more damage. Because you want to be at around, I'd say the safe health mark is probably like 700,000 health. Is probably like the minimum you want to like not die instantly. And then anything above that is just like extra toughness insurance kind of thing. Okay, so I think that's it for the build. There was also the Hallow setup. I'll just show you that briefly here. It's like a... Basically, I just took my multi-shot build and then just kind of swapped around some stuff. I put on Fortress Ballista because you attack pretty quick when you're using grenades. This is the 200% damage rune I was mentioning earlier. It just blows up everywhere in like a 10-yard radius. It does some pretty good damage, I will say that. And because you're attacking really fast, you're always keeping this like absorb shield up from Fortress. And I mean, I did a GR80 with this build pretty easily, to be honest. I just flew through it, and it was pretty fun. Didn't really have any hatred issues because you're always using a generator. And I didn't have too much discipline issues either because I have preparation, so I can restore my discipline. That's the downside of this build though, is you're not using preparation, so you gotta be really careful with your discipline usage because any discipline you use, you literally have to wait for it to regen. There's no way to regen it. And your discipline regen sucks, like it's 1 regen per second. So you gotta be really mindful of optimizing the vault to the every 8 seconds. Like, you should be able to do that because vault costs 8 discipline. So every 8 seconds you'll get a vault, and then that'll just keep your elusive ring up. And as long as you have some kind of discipline cost reduction, like, you're actually gonna be like past that point. So it won't really be like 8 seconds, it'll be like a bit less than 8 seconds, just to make sure you can always have that little brief window of time, you know. Whew. Okay, so that I think is gonna cover it for the build guide. I'll now show you some gameplay. I hope this helped, I hope this taught you something. And yeah. So, take care for now, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy. Have a nice day. off.